Hi, everyone. Welcome to a special bonus episode on the poet Rilke. When I was in my early 20s, I came across these following words in a book that had somehow magically arrived in my home. The book said, "Be patient towards all that is unsolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms and like books that are now written in a very foreign tongue. Do not now seek the answers which cannot be given to you, because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. And perhaps you will then, gradually, without noticing, live along some distant day into the answer." It's interesting reading them today, how relevant they feel. And I remember at that time, many years ago, I was in a period of intense personal transition and some confusion. And there's this distinct remembrance I have that these words were such an invitation towards patience and trust in a gracious unfolding that I couldn't yet comprehend. And it really allowed my whole being to relax and surrender. Now, I reckon that some of you may actually recognize these lines. They come from the book Letters to a Young Poet, which is a collection of letters written by the Bohemian Austrian poet Rainer Maria Rilke to a young officer cadet. And over the course of these 10 exquisite letters, Rilke advises the officer on how a poet should feel, love, and seek truth. It was one of my very first introductions to the work of Rilke, and since, I can firmly say that he is one of the writers who has supported the greatest transitions of my life. And so in this bonus episode, I'll be reading out some of the most moving passages I've read from him and sharing why I think they might be tremendously moving and impactful for us all. Now, before we dive into his poems, let's linger just a little longer on who Rilke was. He is definitely considered to be one of the most lyrically intense German poets. Born in 1875, his life was marked by constant movement, spiritually and geographically. Travels to Russia in the late 1890s profoundly shaped his mystical sensibilities and reverence for religious art and peasant spirituality. Then his years in Paris, where he served as a secretary to the sculptor Rodin, deepened his discipline and a sense of in-seeing, Eisheden, which is a patient contemplation of things until their inner essence reveals itself, which is very Lifeworldy. He spent his later years mostly in Switzerland, my homeland, and was influenced by the philosopher Nietzsche, who led Rilke to enter into the sphere on the nature of life and death. And Rilke drew heavily on Christian imagery, though he reinterpreted it pantheistically, which is to mean seeing the divinity that is immanent and present in all things. So as such, I consider him to be a deeply animist writer. I think to passages, for example, where he says, "Be earth now, and even song." Above all, Rilke has an uncanny ability to capture the real tensions of the human search for meaning, especially amidst moments of great disturbance. Those moments when life grabs us, where it uproots everything we knew to be true. Those moments when our anchors are unmoored, when our center of gravity tumbles out of our chest into the liminal space in between us and the world. I've often turned to Rilke time and time again in my personal moments of heartbreak and despair, when I begin to touch on the alchemical terrain of my own transformation through dark moments. He has shown me how to reconcile suffering with tremendous beauty. There's a manner in which this poetry summons me to a higher way of being and feeling, and he evokes a remembrance somewhere in my bones that these intense periods of sublimation, dissolution, coming undone, they are the very nature of an erotic and deeply sensual connection with existence. That there is some allurement, bordering or firmly entering the seductive, when life plunges into the depths of our being, irrespective of whether we welcome it or not. Initiations do not wait patiently at the door of our therapist's office or comply with our desired timelines. Just after this next Zoom call, please, can I have an awakening? It's not how it works. And so for these reasons, Rilke preeminently is, in my opinion, the poet of thresholds. And therefore his words are medicine for the times we are living in, because of the unraveling and the metamorphosis we are experiencing as our civilization enters its own threshold moments. With that as an introduction, I'd like to set us off with this poem, Onto a Vast Plain, from the Book of Hours, Love Poems to God. You are not surprised at the force of the storm. You have seen it growing. The trees flee. Their flight sets the boulevards streaming. And you know he who they flee is the one you move toward. All your senses sing him as you stand at the window. The weeks stood still in summer. The tree's blood rose. Now you feel it wants to sink back into the source of everything. You thought you could trust that power when you plucked the fruit. Now it becomes a riddle again, and you again a stranger. Summer was like your house. You knew where each thing stood. Now you must go out into your heart as onto a vast plain. Now the immense loneliness begins. The days go numb. The wind sucks the world from your senses like withered leaves. Through the empty branches, the sky remains. It is what you have. Be earth now and even song. Be the ground lying under that sky. Be modest now, like a thing ripened until it is real, so that he who began it all can feel you when he reaches for you. This is a marvelously intimate, secret, dazzling encounter with primal life force. With the desire we each have within us to come undone, to transform into something even greater, to become even more accountable to ourselves and the world. Rilke's words are an invitation in, to move towards, to go out into our hearts as onto a vast plain, so that life can feel us as it reaches for us. In another one of his collections of poems called Sonnets to Orpheus, Rilke evokes a similar invocation, to let ourselves be moved by great forces beyond our comprehension. He says, "Quiet friend who has come so far, feel how your breathing makes more space around you. Let this darkness be a bell tower and you the bell. As you ring, what batters you becomes your strength. As you ring, what batters you becomes your strength. Move back and forth into the change. What is it like, such intensity of pain? If the drink is bitter, turn yourself to wine. In this uncontainable night, be the mystery at the crossroads of your senses, the meaning discovered there. And if the world has ceased to hear you, say to the silent earth, I flow. Say to the rushing water, I am." That line, if the drink is bitter, turn yourself to wine. It's as if he is saying, within the inevitability of transformation, just let it become you, become the sacrament. The alchemy here is tarotic. It is erotic and of the earth. It is vegetal compost. It turns bitterness into nourishment. We become earth, water, fire, the fecundity of the elements. And so to continue working with the metaphor of us being the elements of the earth, here is another poem from the Book of Hours. When I lean over the chasm of myself, it seems my God is dark and like a web, 100 roots silently drinking. It seems my God is dark and like a web, 100 roots silently drinking. This is the ferment I grow out of. More, I don't know, because my branches rest in deep silence, stirred only by the wind. And here I need to pause to take a breath into that vastness of luminous space. I can feel my branches resting in echoing silence, the deep taproot of a winter tree, 100 roots silently drinking. I am ready to be rebirthed into a new shape, just like the poet Rumi's guest who has entered the house of our hearts before we quite know what to do with them and with ourselves. Because here's another edge I have encountered in that space in between. Those depths of grief and pain, those depths we've explored here on the podcast too. Speaking of earth grief, the loss of a future we might have imagined for ourselves and other generations. The coming apart of our sense-making, the feeling adrift, the death of those we love. It also beckons us to great heights. The depth of our pain is the depth of our love. It is not a coincidence that it was Joanna Macy who translated some of Rilke's works so gracefully. That wonderful peace activist elder who always taught us that the heart that breaks open can contain the whole universe. A person who has allowed themselves be viscerally cut open by life cuts life back in return. They have an aperture so wide that allows them to hold even more. We can hold more, always. And this is what Sophie Strand speaks of when she says that healing is not about removing or cutting back. It is a process of addition. It is about adding more to the compost heap. And in that ferment heap of emotions, new roots and shoots grow. Things transform from death into life. And so perhaps when you listen to these next excerpts from several poems of Rilke, see how they might induce within you that sense of the phoenix that rises from the embers, the inevitable cycle of rebirth after the depth of taproot winter, the longing for the intensity of a deeply embodied life. I believe in all that has never yet been spoken. I want to be free from what weighs within me, so that what no one has dared to wish for may once spring clear without my contriving. May what I do flow from me like a river, no forcing and no holding back, the way it is with children. Then in these swelling and ebbing currents, in these deepening tides, moving out, returning, I will sing you as no one ever has, streaming into widening currents, into the open sea. Can't you see me standing before you, cloaked in stillness? Hasn't my longing ripened in you from the beginning, as a fruit ripens from a branch? My blood is alive with many voices, telling me I am made of longing. For the first time, I am alone with you. You, my power to feel. Can you love things as no one has ever thought to love you? I want to unfold. Let no place in me hold itself closed. For where I am closed, I am false. I want to stay clear in your sight. My friends, can you hold and love things as no one has ever thought to love you? Can we let no place in us be closed? This for me is a summons to participation. These poems are prayers. And also they ask something of us in return. They evoke us into being and becoming. We don't get stuck in the underworld. We emerge. And I will end with these final words from Rilke. They are some of the closest I have ever found to being my own rallying cry. if I were to speak on behalf of the earth, as earth, on behalf of this glorious planet that is rousing itself through us and into us, to sing and dance and protect and regenerate. He says, "You who let yourselves feel, enter the breathing that is more than your own. Let it brush your cheeks as it divides and rejoins behind you. Blessed ones, whole ones, you where the heart begins. You are the bow that shoots the arrows, and you are the target. Fear not the pain. Let its weight fall back into the earth. For heavy are the mountains, heavy the seas. The trees you planted in childhood have grown too heavy. You cannot bring them along. Give yourselves to the air, to what you cannot hold. You sent out beyond your recall, go to the limits of your longing. Embody me, embody me, embody me. Flare up like a flame and make big shadows that I can move in. Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final." And so I'll close us there. May we all flare up like flames. May life move in our shadows. May you flare up like a flame. Go to the limits of your longing.